neither the Obama campaign nor the mainstream media can cover the fact that Barack Obama does believe in the redistribution of wealth. You know, for the longest time, those of us who heard the president loud and clear were called racists by progressives. Straight up, here he is, in his own words, back in 1998.
I think the trick is figuring out how do we structure government systems that pool resources and hence facilitate some redistribution, because I actually believe in redistribution, at least at a certain level, to make sure that everybody's got a shot.
Okay, MSNBC, what do you make of that? You know, I could do an entire program just using clips of the president in his own words. But here's one of the most famous moments with Joe the plumber.
Right now, everybody's so pinched that business is bad for everybody. And I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody. But listen, I respect what you do, and I respect your question. And even if I don't go get your vote, I'm still going to be working hard on your behalf, because I want to make sure small businesses are what creates jobs in this country, and I want to encourage them. All right?
So what do you call someone who believes in the redistribution of wealth? That's right, a socialist. Let me get to a pair of stats. Over 100 million Americans now receiving federal welfare. 47% of Americans pay no federal income tax. So 1 in 3 Americans are drawing from the federal government, and almost half aren't paying in. You know, I have a term that the Romney camp may want to pick up: the zero liability voter. These are people who vote on how tax dollars are spent, but they don't contribute any. Simply filing IRS paperwork does not make one a taxpayer. If the government withholds a portion of your income, but in the end you get it all back, you're not a taxpayer. No offense. Here's a little history, if I may. The modern welfare system was born out of the financial and human cost of World War I and the stock market crash of 1929. It was largely centered around single mothers and children and was meant to be a temporary estate. After generations of abuse, it's become a lifestyle and a source of income for millions of Americans. Mitt Romney rightly pointed out we are no longer talking about the percentage of the population that's the poorest of the poor. This is the population that thinks that government exists to meet their needs, and this percentage of people seeking money from government has only exploded. Here, watch.
Pay no tax, approximately 47% of Americans. I'm not likely to be highly successful with a message of lowering taxes. That's not as attractive to those who don't pay income taxes as it is to those who do. And likewise, those who are reliant on government are not as attracted to my message of slimming down the size of government.
What's even funnier is to listen to Obama lecture Romney on Letterman about how he has to be the president for everybody.
One of the things I've learned as president is you represent the entire country. And when I meet Republicans, as I'm traveling around the country, they are hardworking, family people who care deeply about this country. And my expectation is that if you want to be president, you got to work for everybody, not just for some. And
yeah, right. This from the guy who said with total academic disdain, you didn't build that to America's business owners, and who's been out demonizing the people who pay the most into government. I guess they're not part of the everybody. Mr. President, I have a question. If you're the president for everybody, how is it you decided that Group A has an obligation to provide for Group B and maintain that we're all treated equally? In the last 24 hours, left-wing media directed their phony outrage machine at Mitt Romney over what amounts to a truthful statement about the state of our tax system. Here's a little sample.
Rickster, you know, you and I stand on the same side of the aisle, but what I found frustrating about what he said was his dismissiveness. He's not even going to try.
You know, it's extremely troubling that you're running to be the president of the United States and you've written off half the country.
I would expect, though he's standing by this and justifying, I think he probably owes an apology to lots of people.
We've got tons of this stuff. Not so much from the latest Obama clip. Funny, no real headlines on Obama clearly saying he believes in the redistribution of wealth. Now, the Wall Street Journal did an amazing job of breaking down the Romney video using numbers from the Census Bureau. And here are the numbers on entitlements. 26% of households had someone enrolled in Medicaid. You know, the health care program for low-income Americans. 16% of households had at least one member receiving Social Security. 15% lived in a household receiving food stamps. 14% with Medicare benefits. 4% of households received assistance with their rent, and 1% had a member living with unemployment benefits. However you look at it, government welfare is the government forcing person A to give their money to person B. And since the system is not temporary and has only grown over the decades, it's become a fixture, a permanent fixture of taxation. That is to say, the provider class is forever in debt to the recipient class. But what is the origin of debt between person A and person B? Well, progressives will point to the General Welfare Clause in the Constitution. That's total nonsense, because Article 1, Section 8, the enumerated powers, clearly defines what the general welfare is and Congress's powers concerning it. Here's a quote from the National Journal, and I quote, "The biggest champions of this," meaning all of this redistribution, "were Republican Presidents Reagan and George W. Bush. As part of the 2001 and 2003 tax cut packages, Bush expanded the child tax credit to give bigger breaks to families with children. Similarly, during the 1986 tax reform campaign, Reagan expanded the tax break known as the Earned Income Tax Credit as a way to help out poor people." Okay, fine. So like welfare, what started out with good intentions and an attempt to aid a fraction, keyword fraction of the population, quickly grew out of control. And again, this is the failure of trying to judge things based on good intentions. I'll end with this, and I really want you to think about this. If the recipient class grows to 50.1%, it's all over. The majority will always vote itself more largesse at the expense of the minority.